Hello everyone, welcome back to Unsarkari. So starting our discussion for important topics from 22nd of October. So firstly is about an approaching milestone in constitutional governance. So the keyword is constitutional governance here. And this is in the context of that 26th November will be marking 75th anniversary of the adoption of Constitution of India. So, given that it is talking about a milestone, so what are the important pillars in India's journey? As far as constitutional governance, its effective implementation and the downward filtration amongst the people when it comes to even the behavioral aspect or adaptation to this by the society is concerned. So it is already stating that it is not just limited to the political framework of India, but how it has permeated in a deeper sense the constitutional culture that has been captured by the collective consciousness of the Indians across different cultures, faiths, and beliefs. So, how this is again an integrating thread in India. So, that is one aspect we can talk about in a broader sense. Another, we can talk about what are the important pillars that have held to the constitutional governance in India. So, firstly, is the institutions, like different institutional stakeholders related to polity, economy, society, or from the perspective of again the parliament, legislature, executives, the government, and the judiciary, and the power transition. So recently, as we saw that again, that the Nobel Prize in Economics 2024 also was given to the recognition that the importance of social institutions in their important role in terms of the sustainable development and growth of the country. So this is also we can relate to that. So certain facts like Constitution of India was adopted on 26 November 1949, and so extraordinary improvement in the standards of living, quality of life, that has also contributed in significant manner for ordinary Indian to respect the role and contribution of the different democratic institutions. Then we have again large and significant numbers in like every election when talking about other, be it at local level, state level, or the national level. So we are able to successfully perform the elections, and given the simultaneous increase in the population also, and given the voters also, how we have ensured with the help of Election Commission of India that we are able to carry out elections in a fair and transparent manner. So that even that shows the faith in democracy, the respect for democracy. Then we talk about smooth transition of the elected governments. So be it again when we're talking about the different from the perspective of the structural aspect, like when it comes to a single party majority or whether it is the coalition government, and then from every election to election, we see smooth transitions of the government happening. So the 7 decades have seen numerous elections, be it again at the three levels. So there have been varying degree of strengths and the presence within state, or be it at pan India level when you're talking about the even the emergence of different political parties. So that has made it more again given the election exercise more accountability at the same time. And as we say that every voter has one vote, so it is irrespective of any other differential factor. Now, when we're talking about upholding the rights, so even that have played very important role in strengthening constitutional governance. So here we see like we can talk about the fundamental rights. We can talk here about the doctrine of basic structure that is also related to safeguarding the fundamental rights of the people and the citizens. So this is one aspect, and also in terms of upholding the rights, as we say that Indian constitution is a living document, so it has evolved with time, it has adapted to different challenges and the developments leading. For example, we can talk about here the right to privacy, so that was not inherent in the constitution. So with the changing time, with different developments, technological evolutions, we see that this is one unique feature of India's constitution. And then again, federalism again is a very, very important facet of the constitutional governance in India. So be it competitive, be it cooperative federalism, it is seen to be strengthening constitutional governance in India. And then the role of media and the civil society is again very crucial in terms of like instilling the faith in democracy. So the thing that we started with was the adaptability, the flexibility, and again recognizing constitutional supremacy. So that is not just in the political domain. It is equally related to the social domain also. And here it is talking about media. So we can also talk about that, not just media in terms of the TV media, but also like social media also, or we can here also talk about the role of social media becomes more important with the growth of like new technologies or the critical technologies that we're talking about. For example, artificial intelligence. We have seen how regulation of social media has become so important given we stick to conducting free and fair elections. So sanctions and the shadow fleets. So what are firstly the flags of convenience? How do corporations with large fleets they obscure the ownership and the origin of the cargoes? And why has India been accused of hosting a shadow fleet? So, and then the different ways through which ships make sure they don't lose their insurance. So here we see that ships, they are registered in particular nations, which is called as the flag states. And as they flag that country's flag on the ship. So this is one way of getting the ships registered and again recognition when they are in the sea or the open seas. So flag states, they were meant to indicate the origin of the ship through this and to beat sanctions. Like given we see that the geopolitical vulnerabilities and the dynamics changing so quickly. So this is from the perspective of the safety and the recognition and again how the sanctions have been working. Another phenomenon is registering ships within the jurisdictions that are not compliant with the regulatory agencies, like one is the International Maritime Organization. So this is the second method we can talk about related to registration of the ships. And then we talk about that there are many agencies who acknowledge that sanctions on Russian oil cannot be rigorously enforced because of its potential impact on the world economy. Because again, that is one of the core sector when you're talking about crude oil availability that is related to again fueling growth in every aspect of the economy. So merely putting sanctions given the geopolitical reasons is also not seen to be appropriate measure. So how sanctions are implemented. So this is again in the context of the US sanctions on Russia given the Russia-Ukraine war. So it launches investigations into entities, into companies and individuals who violate the sanctions. And then if they have any assets in US, even they are frozen, they are seized. And apart from this, the main intention is again that Russia should not make measures. It should not be successful in any kind of business or any arena where US can control it via imposition of these sanctions. So talking about structure of global shipping. So it is again, currently it is highly diversified. Greeks own 20% of the global merchant shipping fleet. China is crossing again Japan to become the second leading nation in terms of merchant shipping fleet ownership. So most of the ships globally, again, China enjoys the monopoly and the hegemony, be it in building or repairing. And most of them are done in China, then Japan and South Korea. So that is why, given geopolitical dynamics and again the risk that we talk about, like piracy attacks, or even when we are seeing that increased frequency and intensity of the tropical cyclones, also hurricanes and typhoons, the shipping insurance also becomes important. So even when we're talking about the group of World Bank, so there we talk about MEGA. So MEGA is also related to insurance. So it covers this aspect also, insurance related to ships. So this we have seen flags of convenience we've talked about. So how do they insure their insurance? So Turkey, member of NATO, has been found to be extensively trading in Russian oil, given again sanctions on Russia. So Turkish oil ship found to be trading in Russian oil at more than $60 a barrel may lose it. So P&I Club is what we have to search more about here. Because again, there was one question on the Paris Club in prelims. So protection and indemnity covers loss of life. Okay, this is the thing. And damage to property. So it is related to insurance. So there is again to avoid sanctions, it is believed that corporations they are setting up different shell companies that just own one or two ships in order to again avoid these sanctions. So coming to what is the acquisition against India? So soon after the sanctions, they were enforced. Many Russian ships they struck alliances again with Indian firms. We have seen post Russia-Ukraine war, the share of Russia in terms of India's crude oil imports has increased to 40%. It was merely at 1%. So that is the cause of concern for the other countries. So Indian Register of Shipping, it is again a classification, it's a society. It did see an increase in ships it was certifying, bolstering charges of Indian involvement in the shadow fleets. So noting that it has been linked to Russian shipping entities, okay, so it is believed that IRS said its primary responsibility is to the safety of a vessel and that it will not be compromised. So safety of shipping and again priority of India's national interest is the basis of decision. And again, even we have unique relationship with different countries bilaterally, and then again we are going ahead with the multilateral model when it comes to our the foreign policy also. So the things again, crude oil trading should not again fuel the Russia-Ukraine war. That should be again the sole basis. So even 2015, Iran was also sanctioned before in some 160 ships. Many with trade links to Iranian oil, they switched their classification society to again the Korean Register of Shipping, so that again they are not able to track. So even because Korea is also a US ally. So railways decision to shrink advance booking period. So why this decision? So it is observed that 120 days, it was too long a period for again planning journeys and it led to high amount of ticket cancellations also. So we can say that there was more even human resource required for this as well, or the cost might also be impacted because of this or wastage of resources because of this. So currently up to 21 passengers who book their tickets, they end up canceling them. So another trend that was noticed is that between 88% to 90% rail reservations, they occur in the period of 60 days. So again, this is on the basis of data analysis that we have been able to make these changes in a more effective manner. So it is also believed that it might also have led to increase in some kind of frauds also, like impersonation.
लॉन्गर रूट के कारण जो पीरियड था उसके बीच में जो एम्प्टी बर्थ है उसको इलीगली अलॉट किया जाता था बाय द यूज ऑफ मनी।
Hmm.
तो इसलिए रूट रहेगा तो फिर देयर वुड बी ए लेस वो नेक्सस बिटवीन द रेलवेज एज वेल द मिडिल मैन जो पैसे बात करते हैं।
Hmm. So how policies shape high performance building standards and the climate goals. So there are different examples of policies even internationally. So we can just quickly go through them. High performance buildings. So the policies, they in a way, they are giving us the direction. They're again more specific. They've been formulated by the experts. So that is one importance if we talk again in an objective manner about the importance of policies. They are indicating the direction of again the economic growth and development at the same time considering the challenges. So they are solution oriented. So it is talking about high performance buildings. So it is again emerging as essential solutions in the construction sector, particularly to mitigate the impacts of climate change. So address both urban and climate challenges, since the built environment contributes to the issues and present opportunities for change. So here we see that again, this is also critical from the perspective of planned urban development. So firstly, they are having one important element of energy efficiency. So that is central to this high performance buildings designs and drives sustainable construction practices. Like Europe has the Green Deal targets climate neutrality by 2050. For India, it is 2070. So that is one important aspect. So here talking about India supporting these high performance building designs. So we see that we have the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Through it we are supporting it. Then we have the Energy Conservation Building Code. It is developed by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It aims to reduce building energy demands by up to 30%. Then we have GREHA code that we often talk about, the green rating for integrated habitat assessment. So again, green rating for integrated habitat assessment before going ahead with the construction. So like we have the environment impact assessment. So this is particularly for again building and construction habitat assessment. It lists more than 3,000 registered projects for focusing on sustainable practices. So Indian Green Building Council is also there, promotes energy efficient designs. And for example, Hyderabad, Noida, Pune, they also offer high floor area ratios and other incentives for buildings that meet these ECBC standards. So high floor area ratios, again, the number of floors in the vertically constructed building, given the base of area. So that is the ratio, the area that is talking about. And high floor area ratio is that it will be having more number of floors in that building. So certain incentives are promoted that if you go ahead with the implementation, the green building code. So increase in green registrations we are seeing as a result of this. And so when it comes to the challenge related to the finance related to it, because it is going to be a capital intensive investment, we can say. So green technologies, they become more affordable. Initial cost difference between again the conventional method of building and high performance building, that is gradually it is narrowing down. So that is one positive trend. So the more adoption, more demand in the market would increase, so the cost competitiveness is going to increase. So, for example, Infosys successfully integrated the energy efficient design into its campuses using natural lighting, energy efficient air conditioning, smart performance verification. So, these are again more micro components, and it reduced the energy consumption by up to 45%. So, even from the perspective of energy security, this is going to play a very important role. So, energy security is not just about having that, like the buffer or the adequate amount of installed capacity for energy generation. It is also about energy conservation when it comes to the usage of electricity or electricity demand on the part of consumers. So these are very important facts here mentioned. So financial benefits of energy efficiency, they translate to better capitalization rates, which investors use to assess the value of a property also relative to its income potential. Even going ahead in future, this is going to be one important basis of deciding the value of a property. Like we have in Gurugram also ITC's Green Center in Gurugram, TCS Siruseri IT Park in Chennai. So these are important examples from India. And then when it comes to again meeting the financial needs also, so for example, carbon financing supports are there, which are converting their carbon savings into financial value via investment in these high performance buildings. Then we have in regions like European Union and China, they're also following the same methodology of carbon pricing. So here, the improved energy efficiency and lower emissions, they generate more carbon credits. So that's how they are benefiting out of it. And green bonds, we often talk about as an investment measure to attract the investments and finances or the savings of the retail investors. is one of the another mechanism through the capital market, helpful in meeting even the SDG goals. Also, there's Green Climate Fund which exists. There's World Bank also is providing finance for the green projects. So black holes in Webb data ally threat to cosmology's standard model. So here we're talking about the James Webb Space Telescope. So using the data from its studies, found universe should have had massive galaxies sooner than believed. And their conclusion undermined the standard model of cosmology, which attempts to explain universe origin. So these are three important areas. So James Webb Space Telescope is again considered to be more advanced in terms of high high quality pictures that we're able to get through it. So it was launched by NASA, and so universe was a dark place earlier. There was no light from this period to tell us how the first stars and galaxies formed. So there are different theories as well. So this is one of the way. Again, one of the theories believed to be the Big Bang theory, 13.8 billion years ago. And then a dense mixture of gases and subatomic particles. They were formed. Universe over time it expanded and cooled, allowing particles to separate from the mixture. Different planets were formed, galaxies they were formed, clusters were formed. So here we see the technicalities related to the James Webb Space Telescope. So in India, we have the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, Bengaluru. So we see that distant galaxies, they are faint, that detecting them is becoming a challenge. So, but however, we have again the Webb telescope, which is one of the most advanced in the world as well. So the Hubble Space Telescope was again a predecessor to this. So we are comparing these two here. So the Hubble Space Telescope was 2.5-meter wide. Primary mirror in this, it is 6.5-meter wide. Second, the telescope will have to be very sensitive. It relates to its ability to record the data at different wavelengths. So it is more advanced compared to the Hubble telescope. And then Hubble operates in optical, ultraviolet, and some infrared wavelengths. So James Webb is specifically designed for infrared observations, focus on studying the early universe. So cosmic evolution, early release science. There was a survey from again the data collected from the Webb telescope. So focused on galaxies that exist when universe was 650 or to 1500 million years old. So as we are talking about early galaxies. The bottom line is that researchers wrote in the paper that standard model could explain more efficient star formation. So can we need to come to more specific information that can help us over here. Massive black holes contribute to total light emitted by their host galaxies has been known for some time. So when talking about the black hole, so it is formed when the a star dies or any celestial body it dies, so it is formed at the center. Then we have the surrounding area around it is called as the event horizon, and then we have the most outermost area is the ergosphere around the black hole. That this we covered in I think previous year. So ergosphere is the region from where light it can escape, but from event horizon light or gravity it cannot escape. And we know about black hole that the gravitational pull is considered to be the most strongest, so nothing can escape from the black hole. So world lags on 2030 nature goals as COP16 talks begin. So we are seeing here the performance Colombian women performed during the opening ceremony of COP16 at United Nations Biodiversity Conference happening in Colombia. So here the major challenge, as we were discussing yesterday, was also related to climate finance. So we are not having again a common agreement related to this between again the developed and the developing countries. We talked about three funds, but again, forming of new funds is not going to help us. We need to ensure that it works out for us is going to play important role. And then agreeing to the common but differentiated responsibilities by the developed world is equally important to move ahead to the next stages of development of providing finance to countries. So here we see Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework Agreement. So there we saw that the goal was enlisted under this Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Protocol. So a top concern for countries is how to pay for the conservation. So COP16, it talks aiming to develop new initiatives that could generate revenues for nature. So, like we have the Campa Fund in India, that is one of the ways. And then carbon credits, green credits, these are also the form of generating revenues for the nature. So there's been no let up in the destructive activities like logging or be it overfishing, but the governments have missed their deadlines on action plans and funding is well short of the goal at the same time. So national biodiversity strategies and action plans, so they had agreed to do so by the start of COP16, so not been done. So this is related to the submitting of national conservation plans. So not been even plans have not been made. So forget about the implementation and the working out of them. So poorer countries have had a greater time finding the funding, the expertise needed to develop the national biodiversity plans. So World Wildlife Fund for Nature is an important institutional stakeholder here. So richer nations have been quicker to file, including many European nations, Australia, Japan, China, South Korea, Canada. So US attends the talks, but it has never ratified the Convention on Biodiversity also. So it is not obligated to submit a plan itself. So nature restoration law in India. So here talking about the degradation of the natural ecosystem, urgent global issue, and India with its vast geographical ecological diversity is no exception. So yesterday we were talking about like the number of plant species in India is close to 50,000, and India is also having the global biodiversity hotspots in Northeast, in Western Ghats. So we are a very rich country, be it in terms of biodiversity also. So we see that 30% of the total geographical area having land degradation. Need for India to adopt a comprehensive nature restoration law becomes more acute. So nature restoration law, it was enacted by again European Union. So that is again an inspiration, be it again GDPR, be it related to AI Act, and now the nature restoration law by European Union is kind of an inspiring model for us. So here we are talking about the like we are having different measures, but we are lacking on having a comprehensive law to deal with it to when it comes to biodiversity conservation or the ecological balance. So here this we will talk about the nature restoration law of European Union, certain measures of it. So it aims to restore the health of Europe's ecosystem, and the regulation endorsed by majority of member states, it mandates at least 20% of the EU's land and sea areas they must be restored. We're talking about the targets and the need of restoration of fully restored by 2050. Then there is European Green Deal also. It seeks to reverse the alarming trend of biodiversity loss as over as 80% of the Europe's habitats. So talking about the case in India, so we already see that according to ISRO's Desertification and Land Degradation Atlas, nearly 29.7% of India's total geographical area underwent land degradation 2018-19. There's a sharp increase from 2003-5. So desertification in particular growing concern for us. and particularly in states like Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, where we see more of arid climate is there. So they are together forming 24% of India's desertified land area. So we have Green India Mission, we have Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, we have Integrated Watershed Management Program, which is the second largest watershed program in the world. And then we have the national program, National Afforestation Program is there. So the scale of the problem demands more comprehensive approaches needed, which needs to be more binding in nature for the ecosystem restoration. So it is talking about how a law can look like in India on the same basis as we have in European Union. So we need to firstly list our restoration targets. Secondly is the wetland restoration. So this we are also seeing under the Ramsar sites of the Ramsar Convention. Like critical wetlands needs to be identified, like the ones in Sundarbans or the Chilika Lake. Then third is biodiversity in agriculture. So we can talk about different methodologies in terms of agricultural practices like crop diversification or when it comes to agroforestry. So these can be the methods. Fourth is river restoration. So we need to focus on restoring free flowing rivers. Although we have the programs related to Ganga and Yamuna, but not being effectively implemented or not seeing meeting the objectives on the similar lines as what we desired for. And fifth is urban green spaces. So we can talk about the planned urbanization in a sustainable manner. So first we talked about in detail today about the green building code, and we can talk about the Miyawaki method of construction. The of forestry, and then for example vertical gardens are being promoted. So then it is talking about economic and social benefits of restoration of the ecosystem. So it is overall going to be leading to sustainable development, mitigating the impacts of again climate change at the same time, preservation of biodiversity, and according to World Economic Forum, the nature restoration could globally generate economic returns of up to, we can say, $10 trillion annually by 2030. So we can say that it might help us in even improving the air quality, in reducing the disease burden, also in improving the quality of life or even the average lifespan of a human. So improving water security, creating millions of jobs, particularly rural areas. So agriculture productivity is also at the same time very, very crucial from the perspective of food security. So it is related to each and everything which is important for human survival and meeting ultimately the SDG goals. So particularly goal number 15 calls for sustainable management of forest and combating the desertification. So it is not just limited to the quality of life of humans, but even of the animal and the plant species. So stage 2 of GRAP kicks off again, particularly in Delhi NCR region. So what are the measures under it? Again, how these really help us is the question. This we talk about this every single year. So the problem is that it is short term in nature. We need to make a move towards long-term solution measures. So you can just quickly go through what are the important measures. So only these measures, if we implement in long-term perspective, can help us in more positive manner. Animal rights body moves High Court against transfer of captive elephant to Delhi. So the body is Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organizations. It has challenged the transfer of captive elephant named Ranjita from Jorat in Assam to a temple in Scenic Farms in Delhi. So here we can talk about the Wildlife Protection Act, the Environment Protection Act, and also we can talk about the rights or the safety of the animal species, or as we say, prevention of cruelty towards the animals. But here the transfer, firstly, we need to properly assess the location where it would be transferred or it is already transferred, how safe it is for that particular animal species. And for not just its survival, but adaptation to such a climate coming from Assam where we see clean climate and then Delhi. how safe it is for the animal. So, Ma Balmukhi temple has earmarked 1.5 acres in the scenic farms to keep the elephant. So, lack of clarity on what constitutes the religious or any other purpose potentially permits large-scale transfer of the elephants across the country by disregarding the best interest of the elephant. So, this is in a way the gist of it. So, Wildlife Protection Act, under this it has been challenged. And then there are captive elephant transfer or transport rules 2024. So 75% of healthcare workers threatened on duty, according to a survey by the Safdarjung and the AIMS doctors. So this is one of the aspects that we talked about in detail regarding the reforms which are particularly needed in the healthcare sector. So this showcases again, it surveyed 1,566 healthcare professionals. So what they want, better lighting should be there regarding firstly the safety CCTV transport options at night, increased number of security personnel, effective emergency response system should work, clear violence handling protocols should be there, improved duty rooms, essential amenities, accessible emergency contacts. It should be accessible. Confidential reporting system, regular security training drills and campaigns and audits, and unified legal framework on the same can help us. And then in the end, the behavioral aspect of the people or the patients. So India, China finally reaching a deal on easing the line of actual control tensions. So both agree to an agreement on patrolling arrangements, then resolution of all remaining friction points. So gone back to where the situation was in 2020. So until then, we were maintaining the status quo. So we can talk about here the effectiveness or how the de-escalation and de-engagement ties has actually helped us in coming to the solution today. So whether it is related to the Galwan Valley or the Demchuk Valley, and talking about the Ladakhi region, and also that there were tensions related to the territorial aspect in Arunachal Pradesh, which is considered as the eastern sector, and the border is known as the McMahon line. So two sides accepted buffer zones in some areas of dispute that denied the militaries their normal patrolling routes. This is also one part of the agreement. So the buffer zones would continue to exist for patrolling purposes. So heavy sea would only constitute the beginning, and that normalcy at LAC would only follow after de-induction and demobilization of troops that China had amassed at LAC. So this was again India's stance at that point of time. So we'll continue in the next link.